All right, well, welcome everybody to our August garden talk on beneficial insects. Today's presenter is David Russell, who's been a master gardener since 2006. We call David the crazy bug guy, and I think you'll find out why during this presentation. Take it away, David.
Good day, all. This presentation is just a basic introduction to beneficial insects. You'll see a little later in the program why I say it's basic. I'm hoping to lessen your fear of all the insects that are living with you in the house, in the garden, and just everywhere outdoors. So please enjoy this presentation. I just hit the wrong button. Okay, our friends in the home and the garden, and most of you right away say, yuck. Home friends you won't believe that are. Now, everybody I'm sure has seen one of these. This is called a house millipede or North American centipede. This is a very beneficial insect to have in your home. It feeds on all the other insects that are in there. Things such as fungus gnats, other spiders, cockroaches, all types of insects that you find in the house that you don't like. The common house spider, the long-bellied cellar spider, and the daddy longlegs. Now, the interesting thing is the two on the right and the bottom have the same name, but are two different spiders. The harvestman is an opleone, and the other is a spider, true spider. The daddy longlegs that's what most people call the outdoor spider, and the long-bellied or long-bodied cellar spider, of course, is indoors. In the garden, friends that you won't believe are friends, and they are spiders. Jumping spiders, I'm sure as most of you have seen those. The black and yellow garden spiders, of which there's over 30 varieties in North America, color variations. Grass spiders or funnel web spiders, and wolf spiders, one of the most commonly seen outdoor spiders, which looks very, very frightening. Most people squash them right away, don't. Beetles, flies, bees, true bugs, wasps, and some you may never have heard of. On the left is a picture of the Asian lady beetle. On the right is a picture of the lady beetle larvae, a very voracious feeder on aphids, the same as the adult, and other smaller insects of that nature. Don't squash them. In the garden, we have beetles. One of the fastest beetles you'll ever see is the tiger beetle. If you see it, it runs very fast away from you. It feels the ground vibrations, moves very quick. Beneficial, the soldier beetle. Again, a very voracious feeder of a variety of insects in your garden. Those that are pest insects that chew on your plants. You want to foster these in your garden. The spine predatory shield bug. Now, this is a true bug, and if you look at the back of the two bugs pictured, you'll see a triangle just behind the head. That's what identifies it as a true bug. The one on the upper left is feeding on soft fly caterpillars. The one on the bottom is the brown marmorated stink bug, which is the bad bug. It chews on the plant as pictured. Very easily identifiable by the checkered stripes around its whole body. Minute pirate bug feeds on a lot of other bugs, sucks the juice out of them. Now, the assassin beetle that's pictured is the larvae of the wheel bug. It's called a wheel bug because as it goes into an adult stage, it looks like a dinosaur stegosaurus back on it. Very predatory in your garden. The adult green lacewing, we've all seen these flitting around. Most people think they're bad. They're not. They're a predator in the adult stage. And in the lower right, Here's a lacewing larvae enjoying another aphid. Very, very great in the garden. Our social bees. There's only two social bees that live in hives. One is the honeybee and the other is the bumblebee. They are very, very beneficial, not only as pollinators, but as feeders on a lot of other insects. So solitary bees, there's a whole slew of solitary bees, digger bees, sweat bees, and they call them digger bees because they will dig a hole in the garden and that's where their nest is, all by themselves. And one of the nice things is if you have good sandy soil, they will be a whole bunch of them digging a whole bunch of little holes. They are predators in the garden themselves. Very beneficial, as well as being a pollinator. More digger bees, just to show you the variety. And of course, the carpenter bee, which is a bumblebee look-alike. As you can see on the right-hand side, it does a little bit of damage to the wood, untreated wood. But again, it actually collects other insects, lays an egg, puts the insect in there in a stun stage, puts a seal over it, lays another egg, another insect, and thus eliminating a lot of garden pests. And of course, insects are always at war with each other. An ichneumon wasp is one of the most misunderstood wasps that are out there. As you can see, the long stinger, as everybody calls it, it's actually an ovipositor, which it drills into wood, or as you see in the upper right-hand corner, a bag cocoon lays an egg inside the larvae or the egg of the bad insect that it's looking to help get rid of. And a variety of ichneumon wasps are as wide as there are trees. Yellow jackets and wasps, everybody hates them. And yet they are actually very beneficial. They do nest in the ground, they build a paper nest, they nest in your walls, your eaves, etc. But they are beneficial in that they're a pollinator. They love sweets, as we all know, as the middle lower picture shows. But they're also pollinator grabbers. They eat the meats by capturing other insects, taking them back to the nest and adding them to their larder, if you will. Parasitic wasp, who would think that there's a wasp as small as an aphid? Very rarely seen, unless you're actually looking for it. They lay an egg inside the aphid, the egg hatches and eats the aphid. Cyprid flies, who would have thought flies were beneficial? Again, these are things you see in the garden and you don't think too much about. Some of the coloration actually looks like bees. And the difference is bees have 2 pairs of wings, flies have 1 pair of wings. On the bottom right, you'll see one of the larvae of the cyprid flies feeding on the larvae of another insect. Technid flies, ugly flies, but again, beneficial. And I threw a couple pictures of the different technid flies as occasional pollinators working over the flowers looking for nectar. They also pollinate, and they also feed on, as you can see in the lower left, the larvae or caterpillars of other insects. Now, one must know your insects, and these you can look at 65 miles an hour. Jim?
All right. That was a quick overview of our beneficial insects. So if you have something you need identified, you can step in to our Master Gardener helpline. We're here Monday through Friday, 10 to noon. You can also call or email. Next slide, please. And you can find us on our website to register for events. And this will be posted on our YouTube page. Next slide. All right. Thanks, David. And we do have some more garden talks coming up in the fall. That's the first Thursday of every month. We'll open it up for questions. David, you can stop sharing. One thing, David, I wanted to clarify on honeybees and bumblebees, they only use nectar and pollen, correct? Yes. Yeah, you said something about also they eat insects. So I wanted to clarify that with the bees. It's just the wasps that use other insects for their eggs. Okay. Any questions for David? You can either unmute yourself or you could put it in the chat button. Well, I don't see any questions coming in.
Wait, Jan, this is Jane Bickett calling. I just
Oh,
said,
yep, Jane.
my husband has a question. He's auditing this too. We've had some problems with wasps, and someone recently told us a way to scare them away without killing them was to make a nest out of like paper bags and hang it up in a tree, and that would help deter them, scare them away. Have you heard of anything like that? How to get rid of them, in a healthy way?
I have seen that. David, do you know if that's actually a viable option?
I've had a few friends try that and they seem to work. The paper bag acts like another wasp nest to the wasps as they're flying around looking for a place to nest. They see the paper bag hanging there and they figure another nest is already there, so they move on.
Okay, so that does sound helpful. All right, we'll have to give that a try then. Thank you.
Jane, were they nesting in the soil or are they making a nest somewhere?
Yes, inside the wall of our hot tub.
Oh.
Yes. So we started to spray that wasn't really effective, and then someone said, "Oh no, try this." So this presentation was very timely for us to ask the question.
Yeah, so I don't know, because the nest that's already inside the hot tub, they may not actually leave that nest this year, but they only use a nest once.
Oh.
And then what happens is the colony actually dies once winter hits, and only the queen overwinters.
Okay, that's interesting. Does she overwinter in the nest?
Do you know, David?
Most of the queens for the yellow jackets and the other wasps and hornets have a tendency to overwinter in layers of bark, grass. Sometimes they overwinter in the old nest, but very infrequently. Usually it's under grass, in the bark of trees, a nice safe spot that they can overwinter. They do have a special type of blood that as the temperature drops, the blood acts like an antifreeze, so that in the spring when it warms up, they warm up and form a new nest.
So there's a chance she might be overwintering inside the side of the hot tub. So I'm wondering if we should take it apart and scoop everything out, assuming we see something in there, versus, I don't know, something else interesting. Like, in other words, if we hung well, actually maybe a different kind of question. If they nested in there already and said they only use it once, right? So they won't come back in the spring to that
They
same.
won't form another nest in the spring in the same spot. They'll look for another spot somewhere in the yard, the tree, the ground, possibly in the house itself if there's an opening to get into. But they won't build a nest in the same spot.
Okay.
But you probably also won't be able to use your hot tub for the rest of the summer.
Well, and as ironically, we just got it back into circulation. It's been out for 6 months waiting for parts because of COVID and the poor problems with deliveries. So we just got it operational. So I guess they beat it that's to it, huh?
Yeah, Jane, if you need more information on that, you could contact our Master Gardener helpline and we could try to give you some more ideas.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. This has been helpful.
Okay. So David, we had another question from Jennifer. What insects or bugs should we be aware of? And I'm not sure if she means bad or good. Jennifer, do you want to elaborate?
Hi, yeah, I'll just ask my question. I really appreciate knowing which of these insects, bugs, and spiders and wasps are good. Excuse me. But I'm just wondering also if there are insects out there as we are working in the garden that we should be careful of, just for, you know, harm to ourselves, or might be doing damage that we don't realize that they're doing.
Well, Jennifer, first thing in the spring, when you start cleaning up your garden in the best weather there is, one thing I ask people to do is not do it right away. Until you see the bumblebees flying, don't clean your garden, because the bumblebees, queens, nest over winter in tufts of grass, underneath debris in your garden, underneath the leaves and stuff. So when you rake your garden out and things like that, what you're doing is you're raking up the queens of the bumblebees, and it's in the process of destroying the next year's bumblebee population. Wait a few weeks until you see the bumblebees actually flying, going from the trees, which are the early bloomers, and some of your early flowers that come out. When you see them landing on them to pollinate them, then you know you can do your cleanup in your garden. With over 1 million insects in North America, relatively few, less than 30,000, are economically bad or positively bad for us, the humans. So that's quite a small amount. In your garden, I would temper my view of you working in there and being bitten by something simply by, if you are allergic, then use extreme caution whenever you work in the garden, work around flowers and things of that nature. Does this answer
Thank
your
you.
question?
Yes, thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I'm also thinking it's tick season. So even though ticks aren't technically an insect, we do want to be aware of those. Some new invasive species in the outdoors. I know if you bought boxwood this year, there's a possibility of this new box tree moth that the USDA is asking us to watch out for.
Jan wanted me to talk real quick about the spotted lanternfly. It is probably one of the largest leafhoppers we have here in North America. Originally found around the Philadelphia area, it has now spread into 5 states and into the southern tier of New York. It is very destructive to the grape industry, to trees in general, and be very careful if you spot the lanternfly. Please let your local Cooperative Extension and/or Department of Environmental Conservation know about it. It is an invasive species that is spreading very rapidly. You can Google spotted lanternfly and find out about it in greater detail. I highly recommend that gardeners do that in this area and be aware.
Yeah, great. Thank you, David. Any other questions for David?
This is Jane. I have another question.
Okay.
We were one of those folks that were unfortunately impacted by the gypsy moths. Is there anything that we need to do next year to deal with the devastation, chase them away? I've heard some rumblings that you think it was bad this year, they've laid eggs, wait till the following year. Is there any truth to that, or should we be taking any kind of action?
If you would like to email us, we have some brochures that we could send you that give you some information on what to do with this fall, this winter, and next spring to mitigate the gypsy moth problem. Unless you have acres and acres of property, the standard homeowner, there are a few simple things that you can do. So if you go to the email at genesemg@hotmail.com, send us the email requesting that information and we'll get right back to you.
And that was what, Genesee, I'm sorry, I was trying to jot that down, .mg, Mr. Gardner, .edu?
No.
David, if you could go back to the slide, it was on that slide.
Oh.
I'm not getting my, there it is right there. Nope, got to go one more. genesemg@hotmail.com, right at the bottom on the email, under the phone number.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah, Jane, and if you can also go out and look for egg masses now, that is something that can be an idea, give you an idea of how many you might be encountering next year. What we were seeing towards the end of the gypsy moth caterpillars was they were starting to naturally die off from a fungus and a virus that does go through the population. So we're hoping that next spring, those things will both be more prevalent and the population will crash. So definitely email us. We will send you some information on it that we've been sharing.
Okay, will do, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Insect or general? Let me see, there's chat, okay. And if you are trying to encourage beneficial insects into your garden, many of them do also feed on pollen and nectar. So just having a wide variety of flowering plants in your garden, but also reducing pesticide use. You have to leave some of the pests like aphids for the insects to eat. And that is probably one of the most beneficial things you can do to promote these beneficial insects in your garden, or at least target, and don't just do a wide spraying of your garden when you see something damaging. David, anything to add to that?
Well, I would add that in the case of an aphid infestation, one of the simplest and safest forms of getting rid of the aphids, because they are plant specific. For instance, your rose bushes are just covered with aphids. Take your water hose on the heavy stream and spray underneath the leaves and up the stems of the rose bushes. That knocks the aphids off. They don't come back. So that will help end your infestation, whether it be on the roses or any other bushes or trees that you have around the yard.
That's a great tip. And David did talk about this a little bit with the queen bumblebees, But in the fall, don't clean up so much. A lot of our beneficials do overwinter in leaf litter, old stems of plants that have a hollow pith. They'll also maybe overwinter under bark or under stones. So if you can do a little less cleanup in the fall and even early in the spring, that will actually help a lot of our overwintering bees, beneficial insects, butterflies, and moths. So we have to learn the life cycles of these insects so that we can help them continue within our gardens. All right, so if there aren't any more questions, we'll end for today. David, do you have a question?
I would like to add that on the fall cleanup, the reason we specify the bumblebees is because there's 50 different species of bumblebees in North America. And right now, 3 of them have been added to the endangered list. It is the first time that a pollinator has been added to the endangered species list. There is also one called the
Rusty?
rusty. No, not rusty.
No, not the rusty.
I forget right at the moment, that has not been seen for 5 years, 6 years now, and they believe it has gone extinct because of environmental changes. And with the amount of people loving their gardens, as Jan and I mentioned, use caution. Don't be so quick to have a beautiful garden in the fall and in the spring. Save the bumblebees.
All right, and next month in September, we'll be doing gardening through the season. One of our master gardeners, Lynette, will be talking about her garden through an actual full year and how it changes, and probably giving you some tips and tricks. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you soon.